Once upon a time, there was a poor widow who lived with her only daughter, Sofina, in a little village called Nsuri. The villagers loved Sofina because she was pretty, hardworking, and respectful. One very peaceful and cold morning, the cold breeze was playing a soft music and nature was dancing beautifully to its tunes. It was dawn, about 5 a.m. Sofina woke early as usual to fetch water at the village stream. Her mother was still asleep when Sophie headed out to the stream. Sophie took their very old clay pots and some dirty clothes with her so she could wash them as well. Sophie walked down the quiet and narrow path that leads to the stream. On the path, she found an old woman who found it difficult to walk even with the help of a wooden staff, which she used to support her steps. "Good morning, Nne," Sophie greeted the old lady. The old lady replied as if her voice found it difficult to escape from her throat. "Morning, Sophie," she said. Sophie asked Nne why she went to fetch water at her age, especially with her present condition. The old lady smiled but didn't reply. Sophie asked to help the old woman, but she refused and later allowed Sophie to help her. Sophie took the water pot from Nne's head, leaving her clothes and water pot behind. She took the water pot to Nne's hut. Outside was seated an heavily pregnant young lady. Sophie greeted the lady and passed to the backyard to drop the water she was carrying on her head. Nne was following slowly behind Sophie. "Mama, I will be on my way now," said Sophie to Nne. The old lady pleaded with Sophie to at least take a sip of water from her house before leaving so she could be hydrated. Sophie accepted because a no would make the old woman feel bad. Nne offered Sophie a seat beside the pregnant lady. Nne introduced the pregnant lady to Sofina as her only daughter. Sophie stood up and greeted the pregnant lady again. Nne also introduced Sophie to her daughter Chizi. They three chatted for a little longer. By then, it was already 10 minutes past the hour of 7 a.m. Sophie begged Nne to take her leave. Cause it was already getting late. Chizi developed some kind of love for Sophie because of her sweetness and how she helped her mother on her way to the stream. So she asked her mother to tell her more about Sofina. She felt really bad when she learned that Sophie's father is late. Chizi thought of a way to assist the poor widow. She later came up with an idea. Since she was expecting a baby soon, why don't she ask Sophie to move with her to the city and assist her in taking care of her baby, and she will be paid monthly. Chizi discussed with her mother to help her convince Sophie to follow her to the city. Nne sent for Sofina and told her about what her daughter discussed with her. Sophie was filled with joy when she heard Nne mention the city. She has never been to the city all her life. Sophie was silently saying yes within her, but couldn't speak out because she needed approval from her mother before saying yes. Nne was still waiting for Sophie's reply to what she had just told her. "Daughter, I'm still waiting for your say on this," Sophie finally replied after a few minutes of smiling in silence. "Nne, I will have to discuss with my mother first before I can make any decision on this." "Okay, my dear," said Nne. "Try and discuss with your mother. My daughter will be going back to the city the day after tomorrow." Sophie hurriedly ran home to tell her mother about the destiny helper God had sent her. The night of that same day, the village was quiet. It was a full moon night. The sound that could be heard was chirping of crickets and waving cries of owls. Sofina was having dinner with her mother outside their hut. "Sochin, your meal is really delicious," said Sofina's mother to Sofina. Sofina smiled. "Mama, you know I'm always a good cook." I could be given the position of a head chef, Sofina replied jokingly to her mother, who was busy licking out the soup stains from her fingers. Make I hear, little girl. Small hype, head on the video, Sofina's mother said to Sofina in pidgin. They both laughed. Mommy, I have something to tell you, Sofina finally said, when their laugh began fading. I'm all ears, her mother replied. Sofina told her how she helped Nne on her way to the stream and how her good deeds turned to favor her. Her mother was quiet for a while, but later spoke up. I will miss you, my love, but I want what's best for you. I heard life in the city is really lovely and one could get rich faster over there. I can't stop you. The choice is yours anyway, and I'm willing to support your choices. Sophie was overwhelmed with joy as tears rolled down her cheeks. She stood up and hugged her mom. I love you, Mommy. I promise I will return rich, but I will really miss you, Mommy. Mother and child cried for a while, but finally decided to console themselves, saying they were shedding tears of joy. The day finally came that Sophie was supposed to leave to the city with Nne's daughter. Sofina got up early that morning to do her early chores and make sure she made everything available at home for her mother before leaving to the city. It was 7 a.m. already. Sophie started packing her bags. When everything she needed to take with her was packed, she got ready to leave to Nne's place so she could leave with Chizi on time. Sophie hugged and pecked her mother on the neck. Her mother held her tight as tears rolled down her cheeks. Take care, my love. Be a good girl and always remember where you come from. Sophie smiled and replied, I will, Mommy. They both bid themselves goodbye and Sophie left for Nne's place. When she got there, Chizi was already prepared to leave. Chizi and Sophie both left for the city as Nne bid them farewell. Sophie and Chizi got to the park. There, Chizi paid for a bus that would take them from the village to the city park. It took about 4 hours before the bus arrived at the city park, which is located in the heart of the city. When the bus arrived at the park, the conductor helped to upload their bags. Welcome to the city, said Chizi to Sofina. Thank you, ma'am, she replied. They waited in the park for about 20 minutes before Chizi's husband arrived to pick them at the park, as agreed by the couple. Oh, my old baby, said Chizi's husband to Chizi, as he was walking towards the direction where Chizi and Sofina were patiently waiting for him to come pick them up, as promised. The couple hugged each other tightly. I've told you to stop calling me old baby. Can't you just call me babe, or better still, call me your wife? The couples giggled. For some time, Chizi introduced Sofina to her husband. Sofina's husband welcomed Chizi nicely. They three walked to where the car was parked. There they got in and drove off. It was a 10-minute drive from the park. They arrived at their destination. It was a calm estate with beautiful houses. The car drove inside the third block, which happens to be where the couple lives. Chizi showed Sofina to her room and made her feel comfortable. Chizi shared everything with Sofina. In short, she took her as a kid sister. 2 months passed already. Sofina started attending evening classes in a local school she was enrolled. One Sunday night, around 8:45 p.m., Chizi's water broke. She was already in labor. Her husband rushed her to the hospital. Unfortunately, she passed away few minutes after giving birth. Before Chizi's sudden death, she called in Sofina and her husband to the ward she was laying and begged Sofina to help her take care of her child and also pleaded with her husband to take care of Sofina and her baby. "I don't think I will live to take care of my child." So she named her newborn baby after Sofina. Few minutes after she completed her last wish, she gave up the ghost. 6 months walked past with the speed of light since Chizi died. Sofina was becoming tired of babysitting Chizi's daughter. She started treating the innocent baby badly despite the love and care Chizi showered her. It was at night. Little baby Sofina was very ill. Her father wasn't around. He had traveled for a contract outside town. The baby was really disturbing Sofina, and she didn't take it kindly with her that night. She drew out a broomstick and started wiping little Sofina with it. Little Sofina cried out in pain. Sofina ignored her cry and threw her on the bed and left to the kitchen to get more broomsticks to wipe the poor child. When she returned to the bedroom, baby Sofina cried and excreted on herself. The poo was littered all over the bedsheet. Out of anger and wickedness, Sofina fed the feces to the baby forcefully, while wiping the sick baby with about 6 broomsticks on her back. That night, baby Sofina became very feverish due to the excessive beatings Sofina gave her. That night, the little baby gave up the ghost. When morning came, Sofina pretended not to know what actually killed the little baby and blamed it on sickness. Baby Sofina's father got the news from a neighbor during work hours. He couldn't bear the pain of losing his wife and child within a period of 6 months. His BP raised to the extent he couldn't catch his breath. He fainted and died at the spot. Sofina, on the other hand, didn't feel remorseful of her evil deeds. It even made her happy because she could keep all her boss's wealth to herself, since Chizi was the only child of her mother name, and Chizi's husband the only son of his parents. So she kept all the wealth to herself. 7 years later, Sofina got married to Jack and was divorced after 3 years due to her several miscarriages. She remarried but was also divorced because of the same issue. Sofina went to different hospitals to know what was the reason why her womb can't keep the bottles. The doctors all told her that there was nothing wrong with her. Maybe she should conduct a spiritualist. Sofina went to different prayer houses and shrines, but the fake prophets and native doctors were only after her money with the assurance that they can solve her problem. Sofina's mother was no longer happy of her daughter not being able to give her a grandchild, especially now that she was getting really old. So she pleaded with Sofina to follow her to her church, which was located in the village. Sofina accepted because she didn't have a better option. She traveled to the village so she could follow her mother to her church. The church service was ongoing. After sermon, the pastor said he had a message for Sofina. Only if she confesses of the evil she did to an innocent baby, and the confession must be heard to the hearing of the whole church. Sofina began to cry bitterly as she confesses her evil deeds to the church. When she got to the path, she fed the little baby with feces. The whole church shouted, "Jesus!" Sofina's mother was shocked to her bones and couldn't even utter a word. The pastor turned to the congregation and said, "Do good at all times, especially to the ones who wish you well. Karma is real." The pastor then turned to Sofina and said, "The blood and cries of that innocent baby is your problem. Before you will be set free and forgiven, you have to feed yourself with the 3 days decaying feces of an old woman named Sofina." "Ah," Sofina shouted out loud. "How on earth will I find an old woman named Sofina?" The pastor didn't respond. pain, shame, and depression, Sofina ran out in tears. Her mother was too embarrassed to follow her outside. Outside, Sofina found a man selling rat poisons. She bought 3 sachets of rat poison and ran to a nearby bush. There, she committed suicide by poisoning herself. 4 days passed, and no one knew Sofina's whereabouts, including her mother. By then, she had already begun to decay, and the vultures of the air fed on her.